welcome once again to Caleb Likes Books. Today I have another book review for you, and that is for Godkiller by Hannah Kaner. This is the first book in the Fallen Gods. I think it's a trilogy it's supposed to be. I believe the third book is coming out sometime next year. This is a book that I'd heard a little bit about. I'd seen some people on BookTube talking about it. For example, I remember a while back I saw a video where Elliot Brooks talked about this book, as well as a few other booktubers here and there talking about it or mentioning it in videos or reviewing it or whatever. And so it's been on my radar for a bit, but I never really looked too much into it. And one thing that I like to do sometimes when I do some book hauls is I like to just kind of throw in a couple of books that I don't really know anything about, but I think like the cover looks cool or the title sounds interesting, or maybe I just like am looking at books and I see one that, you know, just for whatever reason just jumps out to me and I just want to pick it up, not really knowing anything about it. And this was one of those for me. Granted, again, I had seen it before, but I didn't really know anything about it, and so this was just kind of one that I picked up just out of the blue, and didn't really know what to expect going in, but I thought it might be, you know, a fun experience, just kind of going into something pretty much blind. It was something that I was very hopeful to enjoy because I had heard good things about it, just the little bits that I had heard, and I thought it looked really cool and all that stuff. And this book is a book, like, this year so far, I don't think I've had a book that I've been more conflicted on. The first good chunk of this book I did not enjoy. In fact, I would say at least up until the halfway point, I would have given this book a solidly negative review, which I hate doing because I want to, you know, enjoy the books that I read and talk nicely about them and all these kinds of things. But I will, you know, be honest about what I think of it if I did not like it. And I'll still talk about the good stuff if there is good stuff present, which there is here. But for the first good chunk of this book, I did not enjoy it. But as I finished it, my opinion of it did get a bit better. I think this book improved as it went along. It became more interesting and engaging as it went along. But it definitely has some things in it that I was not a fan of, unfortunately. So it's very conflicted on this book, both because of how my opinion changed over time and also just other things about it that I'm not quite sure what I really feel about this book. To be honest, because there's some stuff in here that I really like, some stuff I don't really like. So to start, as usual, with the stuff that I did really like, the cover art and the art in general. Like this cover, I'll get it real close up for you. Gorgeous cover. Like, this is one of my favorite covers that I've seen in a while. The map inside also is really nice. Just show that to you really quick. And also like the chapter headers and stuff, like I think are really cool. There's like the this chapter header I particularly like. It's very like simple, I guess, but I really like it. Just art direction in general, super good on this book. I really like the presentation of it. Just wanted to kind of point that out because I like to point out really cool art and stuff when I see it, as a big fan of artwork in general. So to get into the actual book itself, I think the premise for this book is fantastic. The premise of this book and kind of the world that it is set in is this world in which there are gods that exist, and the gods themselves are interesting. It kind of reminds me of the gods in Discworld by Terry Pratchett, which tonally these are very different, but kind of similar in that the gods, the amount of power and influence they have is directly proportional to the, you know, how worshipped they are. So a god that has a shrine but no worshippers is going to be, you know, decently powerful, but not like top tier powerful. A god with like lots of shrines, lots of worshippers is going to be super powerful. A god that has no shrine, no worshippers, not going to be very powerful. So the amount of influence that a god has is directly proportional to, you know, how influential they actually are within the world, which is really cool, and something that I really like. But because of things that have happened in the past of this world, the gods are no longer allowed to be worshipped, and they employ the use of Godkillers, hence the title, which are these people who hunt down the gods, hunt down their shrines, destroy them, destroy any memory of them in order to basically erase the gods as much as possible, which is a really cool setup and something that I really like. And also the setup for the story itself, in which you have this girl who becomes connected with one of the gods, the god of white lies, I believe, which you can see here on the cover, kind of what that god looks like, which is really cool. It's a really cool animal design. but it becomes connected to this god, and for whatever reason they can't be separated, and so they go on this quest to figure out, you know, kind of what's up with that. Why are these two characters so deeply interconnected? And then you also have the Godkiller character named Kissin, who basically they interact with each other, and she's like, I need to kill this god, but I can't, because if I kill the god, I might kill the girl as well. And so she gets drawn into this, and then you also have some other characters who get drawn into it. So like the general premise of this book I think is really cool. And I really enjoyed, you know, the world building aspect of the ideas of the world building and the actual like presence of the world building itself in the book. That was always the stuff that I was really interested in. And the idea behind the actual plot of the book is really interesting. I also really enjoyed the prose of this book, the actual writing itself. This is a book that I, despite, like I said earlier, not loving a good chunk of this book, I always enjoyed reading it for the writing itself. I think it's a very well-written book. It's a very, like, you know, there's a lot of beautiful passages, things like that. It's not like a flowery writing type book or anything, but it's very nicely written. I really enjoyed that aspect. I also think that the book's ending was very good. Like I said, enjoyed it more as it went along, and that's especially due to the ending of this book. I think the ending was actually really, really good, and it tied everything together in the book very well. It called back to the beginning in a really nice way, and just kind of brought everything full circle in a way that was very satisfying and very well done. So I did really enjoy the ending of this book. As far as things I did not care for as much in this book, I did not really connect much with the characters or the plot. I think that the setups were there. I think the ideas behind the characters are interesting. I think the ideas behind the setup of the plot is interesting, but the plot and the characters themselves never really grabbed me, never really invested me all that much. And especially this is the case, I think, with Kissin the Godkiller. Kissin is a character that I do think that I started to like more by the end of the book. She kind of has an arc throughout the book. Of all the main characters, I think she has the most prominent arc, and I enjoyed the way that it went as it went along. You know, I think she ended up in a decent place, but for a very significant portion of this book, I found her entirely unlikable. And I felt like I wasn't supposed to. I feel like she's supposed to come off as kind of rough and things like that. Had like a difficult past and is very like tough exterior, like really like kind of very hardened, things like that. Kind of, you know, doesn't take any crap, that kind of thing. Which I feel like I was supposed to kind of enjoy her as that archetype. I just did not like the way that she acted in this book. I felt like she came off as overtly rude and things like that, and very antagonistic towards other main characters in the book at several points. So was not really a fan of her character. Also, the language in this book, which I am not someone who cares much about language in books. It doesn't really bother me, but I feel like the way that it was used in this book, she's like the only person who ever swears in this book, and I felt like it didn't fit. That's just, you know, personal. Like I didn't think that was really necessary. No problem with swearing in general, but that just for some reason did not work for me. And the other major thing that comes to mind is there's a semi-romance in this book. Not like a super big romance or anything. It's not like a focus necessarily, but there is a semi-romance that comes into play, especially later in the book, that I did not think worked at all. It did not land for me. I did not feel like the two characters in the romance had any kind of actual chemistry together or anything like that. Like, it didn't feel like it worked. So that's pretty much the extent of my thoughts on that. Just didn't think that worked very well. So overall, like, my thoughts on this book are difficult to pin down, as I said, because there's stuff in this book. Like, I spent a good amount of time talking about good stuff in this book. Spent a good amount of time talking about bad stuff. It's very hard for me to nail down what I think of this, because I love the ideas, the concepts. I think I may read the next book in the series potentially if I find it for cheap or something, because I think there's a good setup here and there's some good ideas, and I think there's the potential for something really cool here. But there's also just, I was not drawn into it that much. I very much disliked one of the main characters at several points. In fact, I very much disliked one main character and sort of disliked at least one other main character. So it's just, you know, it was not an enjoyable book for me to read in terms of the characters and the story and things like that. The prose, as I said, was good all the way through. That was the one thing I did enjoy all the way through, in addition to the world building. But there was a large portion of this book where I did not care really that much what was going on, and I actively was not enjoying my time reading this book. But it did get better as it went along, so I think if this seems like the kind of thing you might be interested in, I think it might work better for you. Just because, you know, for me, it was like, I loved the ideas and things, and I liked the way it ended, so I think that, you know, if it maybe just doesn't appeal to me personally, it might appeal very much to someone else who is more drawn to this specific kind of story maybe, or these kinds of characters. So definitely I would recommend checking it out, because I think there is stuff here that is worth reading. It's just really hard for me to actually say that I enjoyed this book. So it's a weird one. As I said, very conflicted on it. One of the most conflicting books I have read in a while. Just really have a hard time nailing down my thoughts on this one. But overall, as far as a rating that I would give this book out of 10, I'd give it a 6, which I think is pretty fair for as accurate as I can get for my feelings on this book. Because for me, like a 7 and above is something I think is actually like good. And even though I think that this is like a technically well done book, like I think that the writing's really good and the way that everything kind of comes together is really good, it's not a book that I enjoyed for the most part, in a lot of ways, but there were enough good things here to put it over a 5, which to me is pure neutral. So 6 to me, you know, good middle ground between the two. And I think it's pretty accurate to the way that I actually feel about this book. You know, kind of middling, but there was more, you know, there was some stuff that I did not like, which really pulls it down, but there were some things that I do think were really redeeming about this book, and ultimately, to me, the way that a book ends and the way that I feel about it in the end is really important, and even though there was a significant part of the book that I did not enjoy very much, it left me feeling satisfied, it left me feeling like, okay, that was a really cool ending, and things like that. So it left me with a decently positive feeling at the end, which I guess is a good thing. So to keep this video from going on too long and me just rambling about it, because this is a bit longer than my usual review, evidently, overall, decent book. Had some good stuff, had some bad stuff. I'm curious to hear what you all think of it. If you have read this book before, let me know what you thought of it. If you agree with me, if you also kind of feel conflicted on it, if there was some things about it you really didn't or did like, or if you happen to be one of the people that really did like this book, which it seems like there's quite a few people who really enjoyed this book. And if you happen to have also read the second book in the series, let me know what you thought of that one as well, if you think it's worth me continuing this series, because this is one that it's not one that I'm going to prioritize reading book 2, but, you know, if I find it for a decent price and I feel like I'm in the mood for checking it out, maybe I will. So let me know if you think it would be worth me checking out, if you think it's an improvement or anything like that. Whatever you may think of that or this book, let me know in the comments. So that's pretty much it for this video, so thank you all for watching, and I will see you all next time.